Herzlich willkommen, liebe Zuschauer bei NIHRFF-TV. Heute bei uns zu Gast Saar Maoz und Alankrita Shrivastava. It's very nice to have you here. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
How are you guys?
Good.
What are your impressions of the festival so far?
I arrived about an hour ago, so not much impressions, but it all looks like an amazing operation. I can't wait to see some film. It's going to be great.
How about you?
Well, I came yesterday and it's wonderful. Everyone's been so warm and welcoming, and it's my first time in Germany. Oh. So yeah, I have never visited Germany before. So yeah, it's been really interesting. I came here and met everybody yesterday and listened to some music, the live performance. So that was great.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm
what did you
looking
listen
forward
to?
Well, there was this, I've forgotten what he called himself. He was a one-person band. He was playing last night.
Okay.
I think it's called Black Elephant or something like that.
Oh, yeah, they're very talented. I know him. Well, we're here to talk about your movies. Saar, your movie's called Who's Gonna Love Me Now? Mm-hmm. And I was wondering what your fondest memories are during the production of the film, or the more negative experiences. Was there anything left out, possibly, that didn't make it into the final cut?
There's so much left out. We filmed for about 5 years, and we filmed about 500 hours, and out of this you get 86 minutes. Most of my life is left out of the film, and just little bits of it is stayed in. I think now kind of some of my favorite memories, actually, the little things, you know, the knock on the door. There was a long period of time when I was when we start filming, where the cameraman would come and knock on my door at 7 o'clock. I would kind of go asleep down the stairs, open the door for him, and then go back to bed to sleep so he can wake me up, so we can do a wake up kind of scene where I wake up and go to the shower. And for days and weeks and months he'd been following me, like from the bed to the bathroom, and filming me when I'm taking shower while I'm screaming, "This is not going to go into the movie, what's the point of doing all of that?" and stuff like that. And now, you know, it used to be a point of contention between us, but now it's just lovely. You know, it's just funny, and none of the scenes went into the film, so it's fine.
Did you get used to that process at some point? Was it like, did you accept it?
We mainly got used to, like, disagreeing, you know. I think that's maybe was part of it, the idea that we're not always going to think along the same line. And then I think for me, one of the most important moments, it was quite at the beginning, was to really let it go, you know, like understand that I barely have control of my life, let alone what story will come out, or how it would look like if I will say the things that I don't dare to say, or you know, it's like you have an extra, it's like you have your mother eye all the time on you, and you know, you kind of, maybe things you would get away with without a camera, suddenly there is a camera there, and you know, so it took a while to kind of get used to this whole thing happening, and believe that it's really going to happen, because for a long time, even financially, it wasn't sure that something will come out of it. So yeah, and I thought I would never miss it, but now as the time passed, I kind of, another filming day could have been fun, so. You know.
Well, I'm glad that it's still a positive outcome out of this situation, and that you
massively
have acquainted yourself with this with the situation at the moment. You suffered two major, tremendous setbacks in your life. You were forced to leave your homeland because of your sexuality, and right after that, you were diagnosed with AIDS later on.
Yeah, it took about 10 years between them, but yes, it's this big point. Sorry, I stopped your question.
No,
so, yeah, you know, this is what the film is based on, and obviously the whole story is condensed, as I said, into a short period of time. Some of it took over time, and one of the best things that I've done, whether I've been forced to leave or whether I chose to leave or whatever, is to go very, very, very far away from my problems and hoping that they're not going to catch up with me. And as I learned through my life, and I'm still learning, that everything you are running away from is going to catch up with you at some point. And you know, and it's fine, you know, I forgive myself for running away at the age of 20. You know what you do when you're age 20, when something is really painful, is you don't deal with it, or at least that's how I did it. And yeah, and what this film is about is really actually looking straight into the eyes of those who kind of had those hard things to say, and talking about them and bringing them and having a closure, or at least having all sides willing to sit around the table and participate in something that maybe will bring to a closure, you know. And in itself, it's a very moving moment, because I don't think many people in life gets to kind of say, to put down their egos and put down their opinions and differences and say, let's talk about it. So even before anything happened in the film, I already felt very honored, you know, to come to the table, and then all this magic that happened during the film that I could not even imagine. So.
Your family played a huge role in the film and in your life situation as well. How important was it for you to have your parents eventually accept your situation? And why did you hold on to those family values?
You know, for the longest time, and actually when we start filming the film, the premise of, you know, when we put down on paper why we are doing this film, it was to talk about how it is not important to have your family. It's, you know, you can make your own family, you can make your own friends. I have a whole choir of people who I sing with and go on the road with, and they become my brothers, and you don't need your family. That's how we started. And as you start digging, and not digging in a bad way, but as you start unraveling and uncovering your truth, you kind of, I found anyway, that my roots are always back in my family. And if I won't at least face it, again, the result is not so much important, but if I won't face it, then I can't really be free. I can't really love. I can't really be passionate, because there's always somewhere where it's a dark corner that you don't go to. So, is it important? My family is hugely important to me. I always knew it, you know, even when I pretended I didn't know it. I always knew it, and I love them very much. I also think they are the real heroes and you know, they had to, you know, I believe that I was born gay, and then I contracted HIV, and even through this process and this film, I'm still gay. I still am HIV positive. I did not move from my position. They had to come from their religious homes and their conservative beliefs, and they're going through a journey that takes them all the way through the struggle to bring them, a lot more of them here than me over there, you know. So I really adore my parents, really, like for their courage, you know. I think they had a lot more courage than I ever did. Maybe I got this project and got them to come to the table, but once we started, they did all the work. It's all them.
Well, speaking about family issues, and especially the role of women, makes me think about Rosie and the many identities she has, the many faces that she has. I was wondering what the production process was like during your film, Lipstick Under My Burkha.
Well, the production process was, I mean, fairly regular. It was like quite, I mean, it was not a very complicated process like that. I mean, it worked like a regular film does. We, you know, I got like my producer on board, I got the funding, and we went ahead and cast the film, and we were shooting. So it was, I mean, the only thing of course I had to do was that I did have to instruct my crew that since it's a film which is, about the intimate lives of women, it's important that the entire crew is very, very sensitive. So in India we have very large crews, and they're mostly, except for more, they're largely made up of men. So so I did have to tell them that, you shouldn't snigger on set and don't make anybody feel uncomfortable. So there was that sort of process, and of course I did a lot of preparatory work with the actors for the film. Yeah. So I think it was a difficult shoot because it was a small budget film and we had lots to film, and the scenes were sort of challenging for the actors to do. Yeah. But apart from that, it wasn't a very complicated process in that sense. It was like, I guess, like any other film with its own challenges while we were shooting.
I wanted to ask you about the final cut of the film. Was there something left out in your home country, or are there different versions of the film that may be different
Well,
in some
actually,
way?
no, there's only one version, a version of the film. What happened with the film was that it was banned in India for being too feminist. So because of that, so in India how it works is censorship is a very regular thing, and it's like there's a set of rules that one has to sort of follow, and there's a body called the certification board which actually does this censoring. So all films go through this process where you have to show them the film, and they're quite arbitrary. They ask for sometimes they ask to delete words, to trim scenes, but I think what happened in our case was more rare because they banned the film altogether, and they said the film can't be screened at all. So it would have become illegal for me to screen the film publicly in India. But
For what reasons specifically?
Well, it was quite odd. They said the film is lady oriented. So I guess they felt that because India is a very, very patriarchal sort of society, and Indian cinema also really follows the norms of like where the women are really objectified, or they're stereotyped into being martyrs, or sacrificing kind of women. So there's very little space for ordinary female characters. So, and there's a lot of misogyny in the way sort of films are made in India in terms of what one watches. So I think for the Censor Board of India, it was they're quite regressive and patriarchal, and I think they're quite interested in perpetuating that situation where women don't have a sort of voice. So I think for them it was like, why is there this film which is telling the story of women from a very female point of view? So that was their reason. But luckily, because India is still a functioning democracy, and we do have a judicial system in place, so it took many months, but there was a legal procedure that we sort of followed and got the decision reversed. So finally I was able to release the film in theaters. I did have to make a few cuts, like I had to remove some of the, I had to reduce the length of all sexually intimate scenes by a few seconds. But if I hadn't done that, I would not have been able to get the decision reversed. So that's what happened.
Did that bother you a lot? Did it maybe take away from something that you wanted to express more?
I mean, of course, I feel no filmmaker wants, even to cut a frame of their film once you've locked the edit and you feel that's the film. But I guess I had to see things in a different sort of context, because on the one hand, the film was banned and it was illegal to exhibit the film. And I wanted the film to release no matter what, because I did feel that it sets completely the wrong precedent in a democratic country like India, where the Constitution of India promises freedom of expression and gender equality, and here you have a government authorized body that says this film is going to be banned because it's too lady oriented, etc. So I did feel it's going to set a very wrong precedent, and once they've done it to my film, they're going to continue doing it to more and more films. So I think it was also a practical decision, because I didn't have any other choice. I mean, if I had not accepted that, then I don't know if I would have been able to release the film at all. So I just felt that it's better to sacrifice a few seconds of sex. I mean, not even just a few, scenes, and release the film, because at least they didn't ask me to delete anything. But having said that, I don't agree with it at all. And I wish in a democratic country like India, there would be no such thing as censorship, because I do feel that the two things really don't go hand in hand. But there is a problem, because it's just like it's become so normalized, this whole thing of like, you know, some stuff will be, people will be asked to cut stuff and delete stuff and mute words. And I must say that even after this thing has happened with my film, that censorship continues. Again, there are films that are, you know, being stopped.
What words were muted, for example?
I mean, there was nothing. It was just one or two, you know, abusive words, like the translation of fuck in Hindi.
Okay.
That kind of, it was really those, there was just two words they asked me to mute. I don't think the muting was such a, but it's just odd, because a character opens her mouth and no words, you just mute it and then like whatever. But I mean, I think I was more bothered by the fact that I had to delete certain seconds. But I must say, it's really strange, but in India we are used to it. So when I had first given my film for certification, I was prepared that they're going to ask me to cut stuff or delete some words, because that's how they, I mean, that's what they do with every film. So it was something that I was expecting. But what I wasn't expecting, of course, was that they'll turn around and outright say that this film can't be screened at all.
Why did you choose to make a fictional film and not a documentary, for example? Is there any specific reason for that?
I'm actually not a documentary filmmaker, and in that sense, I'm fascinated by like the fact that, you know, like as a writer and director, you can take things where you want them to go. Your characters can do what you want them to do. So I think in a way, it's like it gives you that sort of freedom to tell the story that you want, and the characters will do what you want. And I think documentary filmmaking is, I feel, an entirely different discipline, because you have to follow characters for long periods of time. It has to have a certain you know, like amount of authenticity and research. I think it's a totally, for me, I mean, so I don't think, I mean, I've made one documentary, but that was not such like you know, it was more like, it was showcasing the cultural history of a province, of a state. But I think I'm more drawn to the idea of imagining characters and stories. I do feel that even fiction has a truth to it. There's an honesty, and it tells you something about life, but not, I guess, in the same way, I guess documentaries are stories as well. But yeah, I think, I don't know, I've not been really drawn to the idea of making documentaries. It was never a question in my head that, you know, should this film be? I mean, it was always a fictional film.
That this universal message from a female perspective, that it really reached the people the way it was supposed to? What was the feedback that you got?
I've had amazing feedback, actually. It's been very, very overwhelming, and I think it's been very interesting because you know, soon after the film had its world premiere last year at the end of October, and it was after the film started traveling is when I applied for certification in India. So the film was traveling and doing really well at festivals. I mean, we've really been showing, you know, like it was like full houses, and we got lots of awards and lots of audience awards, jury awards. And now, in fact, I think the film has been shown at more than 50-55 film festivals. So it has shown a lot, but what was very interesting is that while the film was traveling, I wasn't allowed to screen it in India. So it was like this very dichotomous kind of phase, because in India I was fighting with the authorities to be allowed to screen the film while the film was traveling. And luckily the film was traveling, because I think if I had only been doing the fighting and not seeing anybody watch the film, it would have been very, very heartbreaking. But somehow, because I was seeing that the reaction of so many people from so many different countries, and, you know, belonging to very different cultures, connecting with a film, which honestly, when I had made it, I really thought it's a very, very specific film culturally. I wasn't expecting that it'll have this sort of universal connect with people. So I think it was very heartwarming for me and very, very encouraging for me. And I think that process really helped me continue engaging in this whole process of getting the film to the theatres. And of course, it did release in India finally in July, a couple of months ago. And it was fantastic. It did really well. for a small independent film in India, it really did well commercially, which is quite unheard of. So I think I really felt like the whole process was worth it because a lot of people saw it, and now in fact it's available online in India as well. So I did feel that what the authorities said and how the people responded are two totally different things. And what was very interesting is that even men responded to the film quite interestingly. It wasn't, because one was expecting women to sort of connect and embrace the film. So I think, yeah, it's been a very, very interesting journey.
And still, I imagine, a rewarding process in the end.
Yes, of course.
Do you think this might help the whole film production situation in India, especially if people want to tell stories from a female perspective? Do you think it helped that process along?
I definitely think it's broken a lot of barriers, it's broken new ground, and it's been quite a watershed in terms of portrayal of women on screen, because in India there are certain things that are like you don't cross that line, you won't say those things. So I think by talking in a very honest way about the intimate lives of women and about women seeing themselves and their own bodies and all of that, I think it's been quite a breakthrough moment for cinema in India in terms of the portrayal of women. I hope that it actually leads to more films being made from a female perspective, because that is something that is completely lacking in Indian cinema. Indian cinema is very, very, very insensitive to women, and it's very telling that India is also a country which is where there's a lot of violence and discrimination against women. So I think things just feed into each other. So society and cinema sort of function in that way, which, in that negative vicious cycle. So I do hope that it sort of opens many doors, and definitely for independent cinema, because in India, again, it's like, the big Bollywood tentpole films, they control everything, all the control over resources in terms of funding, distribution, everything. So for a small independent film to actually do well and break ground in terms of actually getting audiences to watch an independent film, I think also from that perspective, it's been quite interesting. But like I'm saying, even though we fought this whole battle for censorship, again, there are new films that are still fighting. So it's not that, this happened and suddenly everything has changed.
Did you run into any censorship problems with your film?
Us? I don't know, I don't think so. I actually think that in a funny way, it's actually a story that that actually show Israel in a kind of a bit patriotic kind of way. It's like I'm leaving home and then I'm coming back, and actually for the authority, I imagine that will be quite a good movie. I resist the idea immensely, because it's not, I have no intention, I definitely did not have an intention, and the Heyman brother who directed this film with Alexander Bodin Safar, they definitely have no intention to massage the Israeli authority ego in any way. Quite the opposite, I think, as they made films that generally just show bits in society that don't show that. And then from the other end, there is the whole HIV issue in Israel, which is very, very different than what I'm used to from Europe and from my life here. So I think it rattled that boat quite a bit. It rattled the boat of religious families who have a son or a daughter who are from the gay community, who come out in any kind of way. I actually, most of what we done since the film came out is talking to people. I think this film is, the more I am traveling with it, whether within Israel, or the more I believe that you need to see it and then let people the opportunity to say stuff and to ask stuff and to ask themselves stuff, because people always, people who talk to me through Facebook or social networks, they always say that they went home and then 2 days, 3 days, things started moving, you know, like suddenly they wanted to speak to their brother or their mom, or, you know, so it's a movie that actually gets you into action, but and for many people is the chance to talk about that. And part of what we did was talking to we went to gay religious communities. There are such thing in Israel. It's crazy, but you know, I went with my mom, and I hope, I really, all I can do is hope that it gave some kind of hope for people who feel that their parents or their family are really, really conservative, and they will never accept it. And, you know, I think my mom, a lot of the time she's been asked how can she deal with this dissonance of having God and having a gay son. And she said, and she always said, you know, first and foremost, I'm a mother. And then I can do whatever I can do for 18 years to get my son to be the best he can be. And from that point, it's his choice. But my job on this earth is to be his mother, whatever he chooses, you know. And in her mind or in her belief, whatever, if people are being the best that they can be, then that's God's will, or that's what makes God happy. And I just hope it can be like an inspiration and make our society move in that direction.
Yeah, I really think that through all the problems that you both faced with the release of your movies or during the production, I think the outcome must have still been rewarding, or is still rewarding, and it's a process that gets people to talk and gets people to really take action, I think. What are your hopes for the future, any future projects that you want to work on?
Well, I think for me it's very clear, because my first film was also a film about, you know, woman finding herself, and made very clearly from the female point of view. So I think as of now, I'm quite clear that all the films that I want to write and direct are films about women finding freedom, finding strength, finding themselves. And definitely I'm very conscious of the gaze, because I think that is something that's in India very, very problematic. So I think, yeah, I guess for me the path is pretty clear. I'm going to continue to try and make these kind of films. And in fact, people keep asking me why I'm not interested in films with male protagonists, and I don't have any particular answer, except that I feel like it's something that's really, I mean, I don't think I have anything new to bring to the table vis-a-vis that, but I do feel that vis-a-vis films about women from the female point of view is something of a rarity in India, and I hope to continue making those kind of films.
Well, I'm not in the film industry, so I don't think there'll be another, like, the way I see the future is less about making a film and more about, without doing any spoilers to our film, because I really hope people come and watch it.
I'm sure they will.
I think what the result of this film, for me, one of the biggest results is that I find my voice, and I find my, I got to see through making the film, but also through showing the film, what happened when you speak up. And you not just speak up for yourself, you do a process for yourself, but then you speak up for other people. And that moves me, that just does it for me. So I hope that at the moment I work for an HIV organization, the biggest HIV organization in Israel, and right now I'm specialized in the gay community, but I've been doing all sorts of stuff over there, and I hope to continue with them for as long as I will, and then there is other areas in Israel, and the more I am being in Israel, in the Israeli society and Israeli politics, the more I believe that actually change should come from governments. Absolutely, we should demonstrate and do whatever we can, but the actual change comes from the ground. So it comes from people who wants to make a difference and wake up in the morning and put up their sleeves and get to work, you know. And I find that exciting, and I find that worth waking up in the morning for. So that's what I'm planning to do, to keep waking up in the morning and get to work.
Very nice. I thank you so much for having you here. I had a wonderful time. I'm afraid we're at an end of our talk so far, but it was really great having you here. Please have all the fun you want at this festival. I wish you the best of luck for the future.
Thank you so much.
Vielen Dank, dass Sie eingeschaltet haben, meine Damen und Herren. Und bleiben Sie dran, wir haben noch mehr Sendungen für Sie auf Lager. Auf Wiedersehen.